When was the last time you spent 5 minutes alone with your own thoughts? No phone, no music, no TV, nothing that could distract you from your own company? If you just felt a tightness in your chest imagining that situation, you are not alone. In fact, you are part of a silent epidemic that is consuming our modern society, the pathological fear of our own inner world. There is a study from the University of Virginia that completely changed the way we understand modern human behavior. Researchers placed people in an empty room for 15 minutes with no distractions, only the option to administer a painful electric shock to themselves if they wanted. The result was shocking. 67% of men and 25% of women chose to shock themselves electrically rather than be alone with their own thoughts. They literally preferred physical pain to facing what was happening inside their own minds. This is not just a statistical fact, it is a cruel mirror of our current reality. We live in a time where we have developed such an intense phobia of our own consciousness that we prefer any form of external suffering to looking inward. And here is what is most frightening. This constant escape is not only making us more anxious and depressed, it is literally stealing us from who we really are. Think for a moment about your day yesterday. From the moment you woke up until the time you went to sleep, how many minutes did you truly spend alone with your thoughts? If you are like most people, you probably can't even calculate it because it simply didn't happen. We wake up and immediately check our phones. We brush our teeth listening to music or watching videos. We have coffee while reading news or chatting. We work multitasking constantly. We come home and turn on the TV. We sleep listening to podcasts or ambient sounds. We have created an impenetrable shield against ourselves. And the most ironic thing is that we do this in the name of productivity, entertainment, social connection. But in reality, we are running away from the only person we need to learn to live with, ourselves. What exactly scares us so much about being alone with our own thoughts? Why have we developed such a deep aversion to our own company? The answer is rooted in psychological mechanisms that date back to our evolution as a species, but have been completely distorted by modern reality. Our brain evolved to be a constant alert system. For millions of years, those who survived were the ones who kept their minds busy scanning the environment for threats, opportunities, resources. A quiet mind was a vulnerable mind. Our ancestors didn't have the luxury of prolonged introspection when a predator could appear at any moment. But here is the problem. This same mental machinery that kept us alive in the African savannah is now torturing us in our living rooms. When we are alone with our thoughts, our brain still goes into maximum alert mode. It starts looking for problems, analyzing threats, reliving embarrassing situations, projecting catastrophic future scenarios. It's as if our mind turns into a torture device that can't be turned off. And the more we run from this experience, the scarier it becomes. It's a perfect vicious cycle. We avoid being alone because it's uncomfortable, and the more we avoid it, the more uncomfortable it becomes. Our tolerance for internal silence drastically decreases. We develop a kind of emotional atrophy where we completely lose the ability to be present with ourselves. But there is something even deeper going on here. It's not just the fear of discomfort that makes us run away. It's the fear of what we might discover about ourselves when all distractions are removed. It's the terror of confronting our true motivations, our deepest fears, our repressed desires, our most intimate insecurities. We live our lives creating elaborate characters for the outside world. We are one person at work, another with friends, another on social media, another at home. We spend so much energy maintaining these masks that we completely lose contact with who we really are beneath it all. And when we are alone with no audience to perform for, no mask to wear, we are forced to confront this terrifying reality. Maybe we no longer know who we really are. This disconnection from our inner self has devastating consequences that go far beyond momentary discomfort. When we don't know our own thoughts, impulses, and mental patterns, we become slaves to them. We make decisions based on automatic programs we don't even realize exist. We react to situations in ways we don't understand. We repeat destructive patterns indefinitely because we never stop to observe them clearly. It's like driving a car without ever looking at the dashboard. You might reach your destination a few times, but eventually you'll run out of fuel, the engine will overheat, or you'll have a complete breakdown. And when that happens, you have no idea what went wrong because you never bothered to understand how the machine works. Our mind is infinitely more complex than any machine ever created, but most people spend their entire lives never trying to understand how it operates. We don't know what our emotional triggers are. We don't recognize our thought patterns. We can't identify when we are being driven by unconscious fears or repressed desires, and here is where the situation becomes even more cruel. Modern society not only allows this disconnection, it actively encourages it. We are constantly bombarded with messages that we need to always be busy, always connected, always consuming some kind of content. The idea of simply sitting and doing nothing is seen as laziness, a waste of time, something suspicious. We have developed a culture that is terrified of emptiness, silence, contemplation. We fill every free second with some kind of external stimulation because we have learned that a person's value is measured by their productivity, their multitasking ability, the number of things they can do simultaneously. But this mindset is slowly killing us. We are creating a generation of people who are strangers to themselves, who cannot distinguish between their own thoughts and the external voices they have internalized, who have completely lost the ability to find peace and satisfaction in their own company. The result is an epidemic of anxiety, depression, and existential emptiness that no amount of external distraction can cure, because the problem is not out there, it's inside here. And as long as we keep running from the only place where true healing can happen, we will remain trapped in this endless cycle of unnecessary suffering. Now you might be thinking, but I know my own thoughts, I know who I am, and I understand that reaction. We all like to believe we have self-knowledge, but allow me to ask a question that might be uncomfortable. When was the last time you really observed your thoughts without judgment, without trying to change or control them? Most people confuse self-knowledge with self-analysis. They believe they know themselves because they spend a lot of time thinking about themselves, but thinking about yourself and observing yourself are two completely different things. When you think about yourself, you are using your mind to analyze your mind. It's like trying to see your own eyes without a mirror. Observing yourself requires a different kind of attention. It requires the ability to step back and witness the flow of your thoughts, emotions, and sensations without fully identifying with them. It's the difference between being carried away by the current and standing on the shore watching the water pass by. And here is the most interesting paradox. The more we try to avoid our own thoughts, the more powerful they become. The more we run from inner silence, the louder our mind gets. It's like trying not to think about a pink elephant. The mere act of trying to avoid something gives more power to that thing. Our unobserved thoughts become our invisible masters. They operate behind the scenes, influencing our decisions, shaping our perceptions, creating our emotional reality. And because we never stop to observe them clearly, we never question their validity or usefulness. How many times have you caught yourself mentally replaying a conversation that went wrong? How many times have you tortured yourself imagining future scenarios that probably will never happen? How many times have you felt bad about yourself because of an internal critical voice you can't even identify where it comes from? These automatic mental patterns are like computer programs running in the background, consuming mental energy and resources without you even noticing. And the only way to gain some control over them is to develop the ability to observe them in action. But here is what no one tells you. Developing this capacity for internal observation is not just useful, it is absolutely essential for any form of genuine personal growth. You cannot change what you cannot see, you cannot heal what you cannot recognize, you cannot transcend patterns you don't even know exist. The journey inward is not just about self-knowledge, it's about freedom, it's about reclaiming control over your own internal experience. It's about discovering that you are not your thoughts, you are not your emotions, you are not your internal stories. You are the consciousness that observes all of this, and when you make this discovery, something extraordinary happens. You realize you have always had an internal refuge, a place of peace and clarity that no external circumstance can touch. You discover that your own consciousness is the home you have always been searching for out there. But let's be honest about one thing, this journey inward is not easy. It's not a comfortable or linear process. When you finally stop running and decide to face your inner world, you will find much more than you expected. You will find fears you preferred to ignore, sadness you never fully processed, anger you kept deep in your chest, dreams you abandoned, parts of yourself you rejected. It's like cleaning a basement that hasn't been visited for decades. At first you find layers and layers of dust, broken things, painful memories. It can be tempting to give up and close the door again, but if you persevere, if you keep cleaning with patience and compassion, eventually you will discover treasures you didn't even know existed. You will discover aspects of yourself that are bright, creative, powerful. You will find reserves of wisdom you never imagined you had. You will reconnect with dreams and aspirations you thought you had lost forever. You will discover that your own company can be not only tolerable but genuinely enjoyable. And here is where many people get stuck. They expect this inner journey to always be transcendent and enlightening. They want to jump straight to the part where they feel at peace and connected with themselves. But the truth is that the journey inward necessarily passes through uncomfortable territories. You will encounter thoughts you don't want to have. You will feel emotions you would rather avoid. You will confront aspects of yourself you don't like. And this is not only normal, it is necessary. It is impossible to fully integrate your psyche without recognizing and accepting all its parts, including those you consider dark or undesirable. But here is what happens when you develop the courage to face these uncomfortable aspects. You discover they are not as terrifying as you imagined. You realize that most of the fear was in the anticipation, in imagining what you might find. Reality is almost always less scary than our anxious mind makes us believe. It's like being afraid of a monster under the bed and finally turning on the light to discover it's just a pile of clothes. Darkness always makes things seem bigger and more threatening than they really are. And our unconscious mind is the darkest territory there is. When you finally turn on the light of consciousness on your internal mental processes, you make a revolutionary discovery. You realize you have much more control over your internal experience than you ever imagined. You discover that you don't have to be a victim of your thoughts and emotions. You can observe them, understand them, and consciously choose how to respond to them. This doesn't mean you will be able to completely control what you think or feel. It means you will develop the ability not to be completely controlled by these processes. You will learn to create space between you and your thoughts, between you and your emotions, and in that space you find freedom. Now here is the question that could change everything. Are you ready to stop running away from yourself? Are you willing to face the temporary discomfort of being alone with your thoughts, in exchange for the permanent freedom of truly knowing who you are? If you've made it this far in this video, if something inside you resonated with these words, then maybe you already know the answer. I want you to do something now. I want you to write just 2 words in the comments. Awakened mind. You don't need to explain anything. You don't need to write anything else. Just those 2 words. This will show me that you understood the message and that you're ready to start this journey. More importantly, it will show yourself that you are making a conscious commitment to stop running away from yourself. Because here is the truth no one wants to admit. You can watch thousands of psychology videos, read hundreds of self-help books, attend every course and workshop in the world, but none of that will make a difference if you're not willing to sit in silence and face your own mind. All genuine personal growth begins with this basic courage to be present with yourself. It's not glamorous, it's not comfortable, it's not Instagram worthy, it's just you alone with your thoughts, choosing to stay instead of running away. And when you develop this ability, when you learn to navigate your inner world with confidence and curiosity instead of fear and avoidance, something miraculous happens. You discover that you've always had everything you needed to be happy, to be whole, to be complete. You discover that you've spent your whole life searching outside for something that has always been inside. You realize that all those moments of restlessness, emptiness, the feeling that something was missing, were not signs that you needed more things, more experiences, more external validation. They were invitations to come home, to reconnect with the source of peace and wisdom that has always existed within you. But this discovery is only possible when you stop treating your inner world as enemy territory to be avoided and start treating it as your true home to be explored. When you change your relationship with silence from something terrifying to something sacred, and here is where the journey becomes truly transformative. When you learn to be comfortable with yourself, you stop needing people and external situations to feel complete. You develop an internal source of stability and peace that depends on nothing and no one. This doesn't mean you become isolated or antisocial. In fact, the opposite happens. When you are genuinely comfortable with yourself, you become much more present and authentic in your relations. You stop using other people as distractions or validations and start connecting with them in a true way. You discover that you can offer genuine presence because you have developed the ability to be present with yourself. You can truly listen because you have learned to listen to your own thoughts without judgment. You can love authentically because you have developed a loving relationship with yourself. The ability to be alone with yourself without despair is not loneliness, it is freedom. It is the end of emotional dependence. the compulsive need for external validation, the constant escape through distractions. It is the beginning of true emotional independence. But let's be practical for a moment. How do you actually start this journey? How do you develop the courage to face your inner world after decades of running from it? The answer is simpler than you imagine, but also more challenging than you'd like. You start small. You start with 5 minutes a day. 5 minutes sitting in silence, no phone, no music, nothing, just you and your thoughts. And when those 5 minutes become uncomfortable, when your mind starts screaming for distraction, you breathe and stay. You observe the discomfort without trying to run from it. In the first days, it can be torture. Your mind will create 1,000 excuses for you to stop. It will tell you that you're wasting time, that you have more important things to do, that this is nonsense. It will bombard you with anxious thoughts, embarrassing memories, worries about the future. All of this is normal and expected. What you're doing is like exercising a muscle that hasn't been used for decades. Naturally, it will hurt at first, but if you persist, if you keep coming back day after day, something extraordinary begins to happen. You develop tolerance for silence. You start noticing patterns in your thoughts. You begin to see clearly how your mind operates, and slowly, very slowly, you begin to realize that there is a difference between you and your thoughts. You start to recognize that there is a part of you that is observing all these mental processes. That observing part is your true identity, your pure consciousness, your authentic self. When you make this discovery, when you realize that you are not your thoughts, not your emotions, not your inner stories, you experience a freedom that no external circumstance can offer. You discover that you have always had an inner refuge, a place of peace that no storm can touch. But here is what impresses me most about this journey: it never ends. The more you explore your inner world, the more you discover there is to explore. The more you know yourself, the more you realize there is to know. It's like discovering that you have an entire universe inside you, with its own galaxies, stars, and planets waiting to be discovered. And unlike the external universe which we explore through technology and instruments, the inner universe can only be explored through pure consciousness, unarmed attention, silent presence. It's an adventure that requires no special equipment, no elaborate preparation, no financial investment. It only requires courage. The courage to stop running from yourself, the courage to face temporary discomfort in exchange for permanent freedom, the courage to discover who you really are when all masks are removed and all distractions are eliminated. This may be the most important journey you will ever take, because at the end of the day, you will spend your entire life in the company of one person, yourself. You can make that company a hell through avoidance and fear, or you can transform it into a paradise through acceptance and curiosity. The choice is yours. It always has been yours, and it is available to you now, at this moment, if you have the courage to do the one thing our modern society has taught us to fear: be alone with your own thoughts. So what will you choose? Will you keep running from yourself, staying busy and distracted until the day you can't anymore, or will you finally come home, to the only place where true peace and freedom can be found? Inside yourself. The answer is in your hands. It always has been.